House Bill 4448 deals with unmanned aircraft. It cleans up Code 423, and I think maybe the best one that explained it was Representative Navarez yesterday when he said he tried to read through the code and you get spun up in circles. And so what the bill does is it cleans up that code so people know when and where they actually can fly. We did add the critical infrastructure, a couple items in there for military bases and airports. And that had Representative Cole's bill that she had in State Affairs, Representative Miller's, along with Representative Zerwas. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Tinderholt, for what purpose?
Will the gentleman yield for questions?
Gentleman yield for questions.
Happy to yield
Gentleman
for questions.
yields.
Thank you so much, sir. You and I talked yesterday about some concerns I have. Well, I have an additional one, and I'm only going to ask a few questions. But the first one, I have serious concern, and I know other members here do, about privacy, my private property. It's not something that was really discussed in detail, but there is a piece in the bill where I'm going to use just the company everybody knows, Amazon, for instance. Companies like Amazon want to be able to fly routes, to be able to essentially drop packages. Is that
to be able to deliver? That's which way technology is moving, correct?
I agree 100%. And I'd like for people to be able to drop packages at my home quicker like that as well. My concern is right now, can my neighbor or a person 3 blocks away fly a drone and video or take pictures of my home in the way that this bill wants to allow companies to do so? An individual cannot, is that correct?
The bill has it to where they cannot be able to use identifiable features of an individual.
But they can, so right now, my neighbor, for instance, can't video or take pictures of my home, is that correct?
Unless your neighbor, like my son, has their commercial license.
So your son is allowed to video and record, for instance, my backyard?
He has his commercial license to be able to fly, and that is correct.
So does this make the private industry, I know that there are certain requirements for the individual to have certain certifications. I see that in the bill, and it's very well written. My concern is that I think it infringes on the people in my district and myself by allowing people to video or take pictures of my personal property.
You know, I could pull up right now on Google Earth and sit here and look at your house and tell you, I looked at Representative Toast yesterday to know he had 2 red cars and 1 white car parked out in front of his house. And so, I mean, those are there. We already have laws on the books that addresses when you use those things inappropriately and being able to capture video images. And as I said yesterday, I know this is sort of like when we used to say you had to put your phone in a basket before you went to the locker room at a workout club because people were afraid you were going to be able to use those pictures. Those are no longer there because we have laws in place that if people use those photos inappropriately, they can be charged.
I see on there that on this section that I'm concerned about, that it says that they can't distribute and make public the pictures and videos. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So my second concern that you and I talked about was Department of Homeland Security, and I think I showed you the documentation.
Correct.
Having concerns about a company that came to testify on the bill that owns 70% of the market. And my concern is they talk about not being able to distribute or share. What's to ensure that, say, one of these companies, specifically the one company that you and I talked about,
right,
can't or won't be able to share them because they're not in America, they're not in our country, and so they won't have to abide by that?
You know, those I look at as those laws and those type of protections are not ones that we can put in place. That is what our federal government is supposed to be doing to ensure that type of piracy and those things don't happen.
So what I'm hearing, and with all due respect, what I'm hearing is at the state level, we can't really enforce that this company that is on the books, on the record, with Department of Homeland Security is most probably collecting intelligence for the Chinese government on our infrastructure. We cannot hold them accountable for that piece that we just talked about, distributing pictures, videos of our homes, of our infrastructure.
I mean, I know the piece you're looking at is from over 2 years ago. And
well,
so
I just looked up.
If you'll let me finish.
Yes.
And maybe there's something more current from that.
There
but,
is.
You know, there was nothing in here that said what are they doing to be able to address that? And I think that's where we look to our federal government to be able to do those things.
So I spent a lot of time last night looking, and there's several articles just from March. The most recent one was March 19th of this specific company collecting intelligence against the United States. They own 70% of the market share, and they came and testified
And
on
there's
the bill.
nothing proprietary or patented that not any other company could do. And if that is a concern, their market share will go quickly down if that is an issue that's being raised.
Well, if you saw the same document that I'm talking about, you saw in there where they talked about dumping. Dumping is when they charge significantly less in the U.S. for their product than they would in China. So, for instance, that same device might be $3,000 to $4,000. They charge $900.
That's
here.
not what this bill is. This bill has nothing to do with the pricing of drones.
What I'm trying to talk about, though, is how this company came and testified on this bill, and I have serious concerns because this was my world. For 21 years, I spent time in the intelligence community. This company is very potentially collecting intelligence on the United States on infrastructure. They're targeting different organizations, and the Texas Military Forces is in your bill. The United States Army came out against this company and these products and said that the U.S. Army can no longer use these products because of the intelligence collection. Remember, they came and testified on the bill. I have serious concerns. You and I are very good friends. I love you.
And I understand your concern on those, and I also know that from those same reasons, the president's only allowed to carry certain types of phones, but yet the rest of us in Texas carry those same phones, and we haven't banned those as well.
Well, but when we added the Texas Military Forces to it, now in your bill, all those key infrastructure things that were banned are no longer banned for the Texas Military Forces. So they can indeed fly over dams and power grid and water infrastructure and sporting facilities, and they can fly over those Texas Military Forces. Now, in that same document you're looking at, it specifically says that this company's agreement specifically says that whoever's using this product has to allow the company to have access to the data as well. So essentially, the company is in the Chinese hands. And in that same document, which is unclassified now, it specifically states that they do indeed give their information to the Chinese government. So if our Texas military forces are using these products that own 70% of the market and testified on this bill...
And if this bill does not pass, nothing will change from that today.
But please
and that's
let me...
the issue. We're raising this alarm that this bill does absolutely nothing to change. If you don't pass it, the same problem exists with that company you're describing.
It exists with sheriff's...
So why doesn't the federal government get off their rears and do something to fix it?
I agree, but after 21 years of being in the military and swearing an oath to protect Texans, that's why I'm standing here today. I really like the intent of your bill, but I'm fearful that China is going to be able to map everything we do in Texas. They're going to have access to usernames, passwords. They're going to be able to see our dams. They're going to be able to, because of the Texas Military Forces piece, they're going to be able to see our critical...
We're blocking more things out that they can't fly over.
When I was in the military, part of getting ready for battle, whether it's to attack someone via cyber or whether you're going to attack them on the ground kinetically with force, is to prep the battlefield. That's what the Chinese are doing.
Mr. Shaheen, right?
Mr. Speaker, members, it's with a heavy heart that I'm doing this to my friend and his wife sitting over here, but I really feel important talking about this. You guys know my background, 21 years in the military, most of it spent in the intelligence community. This company that came to testify on this bill they are indeed collecting intelligence on the United States. Their user agreement specifically states that anything that is uploaded to the cloud, they have access to. They've also openly said that they give the information to the Chinese government. This bill specifically allows Texas military forces to bypass the other pieces of infrastructure and fly over them. That's water, that's power structure, that is military bases, airports. The intelligence collection is probably one of the most important things that an adversary can do against another government. That's what I used to do. I used to collect intelligence in other countries. Parts of this bill are good. I'm going to vote against this bill. I encourage you to vote against this bill because they are collecting intelligence against the United States. This company came to testify on the bill. They own 70% of the market share. These products were banned by the U.S. military. The Army came out 2 years ago and said, we will not use these. I have serious issues with the security of our government. For 21 years, I fought to protect it. And that's what I'm doing up here today against my friend, and I feel bad doing that. But the well-being and the safety and security of our state and the people in it are far more important to me right now. It is imperative that we vote no on this bill until we know more information, or we can make sure that we're not using products that foreign governments are making that are known by Department of Homeland Security. The most recent article written was last month on the 19th. This company collects intelligence against the United States and provides it to the Chinese government. Please vote no against this bill.
Question occurs on final passage, House Bill 4448. It's a record vote. The clerk will ring the bell. Have all voted. Have all voted. Have all voted. There being 50 ayes and 95 noes, the bill fails to pass. The chair lays out on